the greatest moment in my life. Muted.
Oh, again, motherfucker! Hey, yo, sorry, it's not 9 o'clock yet. Gotta watch our language. Oh, Magsy, it's been a. Don't you start? Put that hand down. Don't you start, Magsy? It's been a minute, hasn't it?
3 weeks since we've had this face to face.
Yeah, well, side to side, kind of, isn't it? Where we are on that way.
Yeah, I mean, but for us, behind the scenes, a little peek behind the curtain, me and Say actually face to face.
Yeah, we are. You've been poorly, my friend, haven't you? Are you okay now?
Yeah, I had a COVID again, 3rd time, and to prove it, there's my well-focused in test, pregnancy test, yeah. And then you had a new job role, so it kind of like just put us out of sync for a couple of weeks, didn't it? But we're back, motherfuckers.
We are brilliant. What's that? 90 seconds on the clock, and you've dropped an F-bomb already. Goodness
you can bleep that out.
And on that, I can beat that out because we're live. Yeah, that works. And on that note, hello, Charlie, my youngest daughter in the chat. Speaking of the chat, Magsy, before we get into the show properly, obviously you normally read out the comments from the CWF, and thank you so much, everybody, already jumping in and saying hi at 8:30 because we have a new start time. I was a little concerned that people may turn up at 9 o'clock and be like, what's going on, lads?
And I was not concerned because I messaged Sam saying they will turn up when we tell them to turn up. They will like what we tell them to like.
Yes, but you normally read all the comments out from the chat and so on. Before we dive into the show properly and sort of get on with what we're doing this evening, King Pigsbutters has put a couple of comments at the very top of the chat, which I'm going to find really interesting hearing you read out.
I think I can give a good go at it. Do you want me to have a try? So the first one is Lo siento, Sharon. Then Je suis désolé, Sharon. Et tu me l'aides, Sharon. Me dispiace, Sharon. Sinto muerto, Sharon. Russian. Mnenjal, Sharon. Marf, Sharon. Furlart, Sharon. Dwaybuki, Sharon. Anna Asif, Sharon. Sorry, Sharon. See? There, nailed them. Multilingual.
Look at this.
I can be insulting in any language.
Look at this. A little bit of background about that. Bobbity, brilliant. That's right. We don't have any Italian viewers, do we? Because you pissed them all off about 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, whatever it was. Taking the mick out of them then. So, Pigsbutters has been winding up my wife, which everyone knows is not a good idea. Bad move.
I saw on one of my very infrequent dalliances onto X. I saw the images. Jesus,
right.
He's an image wizard.
He is.
I mean,
you can't fault the craft. You can't fault the ability.
Props to him again for the graphics for today, but he went too far.
Some people just want to see the fucking world burn, Max.
Yes, they do. Jesus.
Oh, but there we go. It's been fun watching my wife's reaction and being like, I'm gonna ban him. He's done. Obviously,
can you imagine? I know you're banned and you can't really watch. Have you got this week's graphics?
Obviously, it's all tongue in cheek. She's, she takes it all in, good spirits and whatever. But she does fucking hate CM Punk. But we'll get to that in a moment, Mags. I think because
I'm sure we will.
We're gonna have a little conversation with things we've missed and so on. And one of those comments does reference CM Punk and a few AEW things. So that's going to be an interesting conversation, I feel.
I think it was Steve-O.
Yeah, so we'll get to that shortly. We will get to that shortly. But possibly the earliest time on a Monday night ever? 25 to 9? Got to be on it. We've never been this early on a Monday before.
No, we haven't. We kind of like that episode of Raw where DX had to do a State of the Union where they wouldn't say particular things before the watershed. Like they were allowed to say beep, beep, beep. It feels weird.
Sleep with that intern. I was up all night. God, Shawn Michaels is brilliant. On that note, though, and let's see if I can remember how to do this. I'm bound to screw this up. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever and whenever you may be listening or watching from. This is Chain Wrestling Live with Mags and Si, an SJP World Media production, episode 133. 101 live. Oh, we missed a trick, Magsy. 101 live. We should have gone back and done another Room 101 vibe for our non-wrestling topic.
I mean, we don't think of things like that.
Well, we do literally now, and it's far too late to do it.
Yeah, but I mean, you could have thought of that like a few days ago.
Yeah. But anyway, I am Si, and with me, as always, is the Randy Savage. Liz has got some baggage. Oh yes, she's coming into this match with some storyline, isn't she? The Is Elizabeth a Hussy?
Moist, wet lips.
Oh my goodness. The Is Elizabeth a Hussy? To my Flair's got pictures of her. Pictures of her not wearing much. A podcaster who has been very poorly with the Rona, and I'm glad that he's back, and I'm glad that I'm back, and I'm glad the CWF is back because I fucking missed this.
Yes, we both did. Absolutely.
Mr. Mags, it's good to see you, my friend.
And the same to you, I suppose.
Yeah, so you didn't sound as convincing as me, but we'll move swiftly past that. We'll move swiftly past that. Shall we jump into the chat and see who has joined us? And I say this early doors every week, but on this scenario, literally early doors, because we've got a new start.
It's very early doors. It absolutely is very early doors. And now, first in the chat was obviously King's Pig Banners. I'm not going to defame these languages any more than I already have, but just know he said sorry to Sharon in multiple languages. He then jumped over to Twitch and then said, welcome back, gents. Thank you very much, sir. And thank you again for the amazing graphics. We always appreciate your hard work.
Everyone should do that, by the way. Everyone should be watching us on YouTube and then using a different device to watch us on Twitch, so we get double the viewers.
And a third device to watch us on Facebook.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. What's wrong with you lazy lot? Come on.
Exactly. Dan Griffin, hello, sir. Evening, CWF. Bloody hell, that feels good to say. Yeah, do you know what? It does. I was saying to Mrs. Mags just before we came in to record, I've missed it, and now it feels weird to not be 3 weeks without doing it, and it just felt really weird and good to be back. Young Charlie in the chat. Hello, Charlie. Might have some Charlie related news coming up pretty soon, but we'll get to that as and when. Connor in the chat. Hello, sir. He says, hi, Mags and Sag. Good to see your handsome faces again. I mean, buttering us up saying we're handsome. We'll allow it. Sharon,
I'll take it.
It's Monday night, and you know what that means. The biggest CM Punk fan ever. I've seen the pictures of her hugging CM Punk. Sharon, you disappoint me. King Pig's Bladder says he thought it might be safer to watch from Twitch because Sharon is hanging around on YouTube ready to ban his ass.
Yes.
Scottish Danny in the chat. Hello, sir. How are you? He says, hey, you're CWF Maniacs. And Dan Griffin says, F yeah for early fuck bombs. Yeah, exactly. James in the chat. Yeah, I'm all right. Yes, I'm all right. I think that's the proper one.
Sharon, Max knows words.
Yep, exactly. Sharon says Pig's Bladder is getting a ban. Yeah, but he's done the sneaky thing. He's gone over to Twitch where you don't have that authority. So
I think she might.
He wins. Oh shit. You're knackered then.
Well, in fact, I'll tell you what, I don't know if she does, but she should have, because I don't know how to do it. Yeah. So if we get any troublemakers, I don't really know what I'm doing.
Oh, I have all faith that Sharon would get rid of any troublemakers.
Fair enough.
Even ones that don't make trouble should be worried that Sharon may get rid of them.
She rules with an iron fist.
She absolutely does. King's Pig's Banner jumps back to YouTube and says, hi, gents. Hi, CWF. And Dan says, nobody is surprised at Sharon saying that he's going to get a ban. I know, I'm actually surprised it hasn't come earlier than now. King's Pig's Banner's trying to poke the bear by saying, hey, Sharon. And then Barbity Boobity by Sharon.
Brilliant. That's fantastic.
Dan Griffin says, at least no one said cunt yet.
Oh, for God's sake.
You're right, we haven't. Pigs says Pigs bladder can get in the same bin as CM Punk.
Yeah. Careful.
And Scottish Danny says we haven't had any pedo references yet. Now then, Scottish Danny, calm down with that. You are regretting coming back. This half 8 malarkey was a bad idea, Sam.
Yeah. Do you know what? I could just tolerate being tired at work tomorrow and we'll go back to 9 o'clock.
Exactly. King's Pigs Banner again has to apologise. And then he's actually surprised that he hasn't been banned too. So that's the early chat caught up with in a timely fashion.
Yeah, there we go. Good stuff, mate. Good stuff. Yes, so we've got a few things to do tonight, haven't we? We've got a wrestling match that's been on the poll a couple of times. And interestingly enough, it's always been me that has put it forward. But on this particular occasion, when it wins, I actually voted for the alternative. So I think maybe it's just
You're
me.
a traitor. Yeah, it is you.
I jinx things, apparently.
You do.
Yes, we're going to be looking at Randy Savage versus Ric Flair from WrestleMania 8 and all the Photoshop shenanigans that Ric Flair has in the build-up to that match. We have a non-wrestling topic of what have we missed? What would we have been talking about in the past few weeks where we've been away?
There's been quite a lot.
Well, yeah, Magsy, you put in the description on YouTube that we have a couple of weeks off and like the whole wrestling world just falls apart.
Pretty much. We had another all-in brawl-in with Punk.
Yeah,
it's not gone good, has it? We've lost some more stars in the wrestling world. Yeah, it's been pretty grim.
On that note, your solo episode that you recorded speaking about Bray Wyatt and Terry Funk was absolutely fantastic. It did go out 9 o'clock as live, I suppose, even though it was pre-recorded on our streaming services. But you can also hear the audio version as the podcast if you still want to go back and revisit that as well. Well worth listening and well worth checking out. Magsy did a fantastic job on that, but it was really, really good.
Yeah, thank you very much. Fun fact, that took probably 3 times as long to record as it did for normal people to listen because I had to edit out plenty of coughs and sniffles. So I worked hard during COVID for your ears. But yeah, it's just some sad losses in the wrestling world.
Yeah. We have a game to play, don't we? Before we head back into Max v Sky and all that sort of stuff in later.
Because the professionals that we are, we only mentioned it last night. Like, are we doing Max v Sky or is it a Hall of Fame entrant? And we're like, yeah, we've not done any research whatsoever for this. Let's do a sporkle.
So we have that to come. But I suppose before we get into that, you did tease about some potential chicken news, Mags. So are we heading to that?
Let's do it.
Chicken News with Mags, only on Chain Wrestling.
Yes, so it's been a mixed bag for chicken related news over these past couple of weeks. First, I'm going to start on a very sad note. Unfortunately, one of the OG chickens passed away.
Oh no.
Yeah, she had something called egg banding, where when the chickens lay eggs, they are soft, so the chickens can push them out, and then when they make contact with the air, that's when they harden to create the shell. But what happens with egg banding is that the shell hardens inside the chicken and kind of gets attached to the internal organs, and it's a rough time. But fortunately, it was a very quick passing. So there wasn't a lot of suffering too much. The rest of the chickens got a little bit fretty because they are a community kind of a animal. So we had a week or so where egg laying was down, and you could see the chickens were a little bit stressed. So they got a bit more care and attention, and they seem to be back to normal now. But in regards to Charlie, I mentioned some Charlie related news. So Charlie has one of the newer chickens named after her. as many of the CWF will know. And she was actually the first of the new batch of chickens to start laying. She laid her first egg a couple of weeks ago. And Charlie, being the chicken and potentially the human, heel turned on her pack of young chickens and decided to turn to the OG chickens, kind of like joining the four horsemen from the NWO. So basically, the younger chickens all perch on one perch, and the older chickens all perch on another. And when Charlie started laying eggs, she jumped from the new chicken's perch to the older chicken's perch. So brilliant. Yeah, she's turned heel. But then another one of the younger chickens actually started laying as well. So we now are getting 5 to 6 eggs every single day now from the chickens. Wow. So they're doing really, really well.
We had none come down this way, have we? What's going on?
I mean, I'm still trying to roll it down that cheesel. They're oval shaped, so they keep getting stuck.
Nothing gets stuck on that hill, mate. Trust me. You can start at the top, get to the bottom, and probably only touch the hill itself once on the way down. It's that steep. Oh man, it's sad to hear about the first bit of news, but it's lush to see that the younger chickens are laying well and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, good stuff, man.
Yeah, they're doing really well. Just when we first got the younger chickens, they were really nervous. Obviously, there's a lot of henpecking because there's a hierarchy in chickens, and now the younger chickens just stand up for themselves. They don't take any grief from the older chickens, and it's like one big happy chicken family now. So yeah,
brilliant,
doing really well.
Brilliant stuff, man. Excellent stuff. There we go. So we have a game to play. I can never remember what it's called. A sporkle? Sportle?
It's sporkle, yeah.
Spokle.
Sporkle. Sporcle.
I've got the window open because it's cold in here, and there's a fly that's coming in now, and it's buzzing around my head. So if I frantically start jumping around like this, that's what's going on, if anyone's wondering. Okay. But yes, I noticed it just down below the screen that people can see where we've got our sort of studio bit. It looks a bit different to what we've had before, mate.
Yeah, so Sporkle is a bunch of timed quizzes on all kinds of topics, but they're not just the ones where you fill in the names or anything like that. They have all kinds of different ones. There's picture quizzes, audio quizzes, and this one is a crossword, all wrestling related. So we have a time limit of 10 minutes. So let's see if we can plow through a crossword.
I can't read any of that.
Well, I'll read the clues.
Yes.
And you and the chat, and if I know the answer, we'll just chuck them in.
Okay.
Are we ready to go?
Yeah, let's give it a go. What's the worst that can happen?
So, clue 1, one across, Ric Flair, for short. So I'm assuming it's his nickname. So I'd go with Nate. Does that sound right to everyone?
Yeah, well, it fits.
4 across. Well, you can tell when it's right because the word goes green. If it's wrong, it stays black. 4 across, device used by the Road Warriors.
Harley.
Device used by Road Warriors.
Doomsday.
Yeah. Dan in the chat got it right. Well done, Dan.
Yeah, good stuff, Dan. Shout them out in the chat, and I'll shout them to Mags then as well.
7 across, Metallica soundtrack to SummerSlam 2003, Something Anger. Well, it's Saint.
Yeah, what a shit album that was. But anyway.
Vince's Sexy Bitch.
Vince's Sexy Bitch?
Yeah.
Well, in his mind, it's his own daughter, isn't
it? I'm not putting Steph. Surely we're going with Trish.
Yeah.
It's not Trish.
Is it? No.
Linda.
Vince's Sexy Bitch.
Not Linda. I mean, we can always
not
come back.
Tory, is it?
No, that's 5 letters.
Yeah, but isn't Tory T-O-R-R-I? Oh, no, it's the E on the end, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've tried Trish King's Pig's Bladders. Shall we try Steph? Just in case he is a bit of a wrong gun.
Well, we know he is, mate, don't we? There's some of the stuff he wanted her to do. Sean, someone's just put.
You know what? That may be right. No, it's not Sean. No. Anyway, we'll move on. 11 across. First name of Head's buddy, Snow. So that'll be Al.
Al, yeah.
12 across, sorry. Combined WWE title reigns for Austin and Cena as of October 2020.
So Cena's got 16. Austin's won what? 4?
5,
20?
Austin.
5. So
So
that'll be 21 then.
Well, 21. Why? I mean, this is very awkward. Well, it's not. It can't be 21.
Okay.
Not enough letters.
Okay. This is difficult, Max.
I mean, the good thing with a crossword is you can get the other answers and they give you clues.
2 down is Taylor. Dan Griffin shouting in the chat.
Taylor, so with a like that, I'm guessing. So sexy bitch beginning with Y. That'll be 8 across, obviously.
That's confusing me.
So 5 down, UK, 1997 UK only pay-per-view. So was that one night only?
Yeah. That was at the NEC, wasn't it?
One night only. Yep, correct. 6 down, the opportunity to challenge for a title. It's a shot. I mean, it is a shot because I've got it.
That must be 19. The one that we thought was 20, whatever. It must be 19.
Let's try it. Correct. 10 down. Sheamus and R-Truth in 2015 King of the Ring.
No idea.
Okay, 1 down. Let's go with that. Knobs and Sags.
Nasty Boys. God, I hate the Nasty Boys.
Number 3 down. Eddie's Gobbledygoo King brother.
Oh, what was his name? Hector
Guerrero, correct.
Yeah. Dan just shouted out that in the chat. 3 down is Hector. He also says, Dan Griffin in the chat, 9 down is TN.
9 down. So that's that. So sexy bitch must be Vince's yacht then.
Okay.
So let's go with 13 across. Kane's last name.
Bearer.
It actually is as well if Paul's his dad. That's simple. Initial of Henry Godwin's brother. So that's Phineas R. Godwin.
Yeah. Pig. Bloody fly.
16 across. Irish move to send opponents to the ropes. That's the
Irish whip. Yep.
17 across. Headliner at 2 consecutive WrestleManias, beginning with a Y. So would that be Yokozuna, do you think?
Okay, yeah, 93 and 94. 9 and
19
10.
across. The first name of 2019 Hall of Famer inducted by Stacy Keibler. Now that's going to be Tori, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, spelled we'll put in the Wilson in. 21 across. Edge and Christian nationality.
Canadian.
They are. 22 across. Ricochet's Kentucky hometown.
Oh, I don't
really know a lot of Kentucky towns. So 18 down. First name of Nation Domination member. So Karma.
Yes. Max, you're flying on this.
I'm doing really well.
Dan Griffin in the chat says that Ricochet's from Flippington.
14 down. Tag partner for Big Cass.
Enzo.
It was Enzo, correct.
And you can't teach that.
15 down. Springboard crossbody to the outside.
Oh, Plancher.
We're flying through these. 16 down. Part of the WWF and WCW, but not ECW. So it's going to be world, isn't it?
Okay.
20 down. Type of slam suffered by Andre the Giant at the Silverdome.
Body.
It's 5
Too many
words.
letters. Type of slam.
Power. Nope, not power. Scoop.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, okay.
Scoop. Hercules in tag team with Paul Roma. That's power.
Power and Glory, weren't they?
Yep. 22 across. Ricochet's hometown, where we've got P. That doesn't belong there. I have no idea what that. What
Pig's Bladders has Alton Eloy in the chat. Is that
Alton, Illinois? What is that? What's that answer for?
Give us a shout out, Pig's Bladders. I'm guessing that's for the Ricochet question. Yeah, Ricochet, Alton, he says.
Well, it says it starts with a P, A, and then a couple of letters, so it's not enough letters there, I don't think. 23 across, real first name of Lita. Well, it's Amy.
Amy, yeah, Amy Dumas, yeah.
26 across, the youngest Hart brother.
Owen.
28 across, a rear lock, often the setup for a German suplex.
Waste.
Yep. 29 across, Japanese legend with 24 down. What was 24 down? Japanese legend with 29 across.
So
Muta. Yeah, Muta. So 29.
That'd be great. Oh, we're flying here. We got three to get. Paducah, King's Pig's Bladders is saying.
That would nice work. One.
Yeah, good work, Pig's Bladders.
Well played, Pig's Bladder. So we've got 30 across. Oh, I've spelled great wrong. That's brilliant. 30 across, nickname of the longest reigning ECW champion.
Who was the longest reigning ECW champion? Franchise, Shane Douglas.
Franchise, yeah. Well played.
I got very excited that I knew that.
25 down, Great American pay-per-view. So that's Bash, I would say. And then this one, Sheamus and R-Truth in 2015 King of the Ring.
Oh, my word.
Were they a tag team?
I don't know.
27 across. Oh, we haven't got that one anyway.
Oh, Nia Jax, Pig's Bladders. Oh, NWA, is that?
Yeah, NWA.
Pig's Bladders put Nia, so.
The National Idiots Alliance. Yeah. Semi-finalist. Dan.
What a shite, Dan Griffin.
We've nailed it, team. 57 seconds to go, and we got 100%.
You people are amazing.
Give yourselves a round of applause.
Super. Well done, CWF. Guys. Absolutely brilliant. Well done. Obviously, that makes for fantastic audio later in the week for the audio listeners. just me shouting like, Shane Douglas!
Well, I read the questions out, so they might be, if they draw themselves a crossword board, they can play along.
They got to draw it as they're playing along.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think that's very practical, but yeah, give it a go. Somebody let us know how that works out.
Yeah. Well, thank you for CWF for the help. We absolutely nailed it. Brilliant, guys.
Yeah. I love doing those, mate. They're a good crack, aren't they?
Dan Griffin. Nobody's been that excited by Shane Douglas in a while. That's very, very true.
One of the best things about Shane Douglas was that he used Perfect Strangers by Deep Purple as his entrance theme. And it was the only good record Deep Purple released after, say, 1976. So, you know, it is a tune. It is really good. And then when he went to WCW, they made him one of those dubbed shitty Jimmy Hart versions.
Yeah.
And it's so much like the original. I'm amazed they didn't get sued.
I mean, they did. They got away with so much, though. I mean, DDP's always tickles me how they did not get sued for Smells Like Teen Spirit.
Yeah,
ridiculous.
Crazy, absolutely crazy. I suppose then, I guess, shall we dive into our non-wrestling topic, Mags? Because the chat, normally we check the chat, but we've been going through it as we played the game because it's just people shouting out answers to the crossword, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So let's get on to this non-wrestling topic.
NWT time. Oh, no wrestling talk here. It's the non-wrestling topic.
Lovely.
Nice. Lovely.
Nice. Ooh, lovely.
Lovely.
Brilliant.
No,
you're doing so well.
I just read. I took a blast on my vape because my mic's muted when those things play, and I just read Dan Griffin's comment in the chat as I was taking a blast on my vape, and it made me choke. Dan Griffin says Kurt Cobain blew his top when he heard that DDP music.
Oh,
that's so bad.
It's the new law for Dan Griffin, is that?
Yeah, and it takes a lot to get lower than he already is. Anyway, Oh, excuse me, I'm spluttering my guts out now. Dan's broken me. Ah, there we go. Okay, pardon me. Right, our non-wrestling topic this week was as what the hell are those? Are those us? They are us, aren't they?
They are. But Pig's Bladder has done us a special little screen for that as well.
Oh, look at that. Look at the chain hanging down and everything.
Yeah, but then if you
Oh.
remove one of us,
Look at that. Again, if you're listening on the audio version, you check out these images that Pig's Bladder makes for us. They're absolutely fantastic.
they are superb. They are.
Yes. So, what have we missed? We've been away for a few weeks. There's been a bit going on. And we said, what have we missed with regards to topics in the news? Because we are very, topical show, Magsy, aren't we? We comment on current affairs and, we're highly serious about stuff,
Oh, where?
Nah. Also, what have we missed in the world of wrestling, podcasting? You guys out there in the CWF, tell us what's been
Current
going on.
affairs, news,
Current affairs. Tell us what's been going on. And also, people
spelling,
in the chat.
books,
Spelling.
Britain. Oh, I thought we were just naming subjects from Bullseye.
In one. I've got a Bullseye sound effect I play on the audio version quite a bit, so I'll use that there. In the chat as well, if there's any comments you want to throw out about anything we're talking about.
Yep, chuck them in.
If you have comments yourself about something that's happened in the last couple of weeks in your personal life, your professional life, or anything in general in the world you want us to discuss and comment on, this is what we're here for. We're here on a Monday night for us all to sit down and have a little chat in our own little CWF chain wrestling family. I will begin with, I'll run through them in the order they came into us, Mags, shall I?
Well, why change the habit of a lifetime?
I will begin with Mr. Pig's Bladders himself.
The first one. Look at that. I'm happy with that.
He's broken me. So much has happened with the AEW, Punk, and Perry stuff, but I won't dwell on that bit. No, we're going to get to that later, I think. But who should Big Bad Tony Khan employ as his enforcer to keep the talent in line and stop any future threats on his life? My pick would be Tank Abbott. The man's indestructible and unflappable.
Yep. And he's got a glorious leather jacket as well.
He has indeed. He has indeed. Did you see Vince Russo putting out it's not even just a tweet anymore, is it? Because I think people can pay to have longer, almost like Facebook statuses, and like you got to click more, and it goes on for ages on Twitter. Have you seen these?
I've seen one or two. I don't go on Twitter enough to see, but I have seen a couple of very long, almost like essays that people put out. Yeah.
Yes. Now, Vince Russo, I think, gets a rough ride, but also talks a lot of bollocks and doesn't do himself any favors. But in this instance, I thought he was speaking quite a bit of sense. He said about the issues with discipline in the AEW locker room, and Pig's Bladders is saying about having somebody to be the enforcer or take care of that aspect of the business. He said that he could do a lot worse, and these are Russo's words. People would be surprised I'm going to say this because I don't like the guy, but he could do a lot worse than hiring Eric Bischoff. He dealt with a lot of grief backstage in WWE.
I think I may have seen that.
Right.
Yeah.
And Russo goes on to say Bischoff never gave a shit if people liked him or not.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I think Tony Khan's problem is he wants to be one of the boys. Secondly,
that's the problem he had with Punk. I mean, I know we're going to get onto it later on, but the problem was he was a fan of Punk rather than a boss of Punk.
Yes. Yeah. And I also think there's a big issue with him being a mark for the elites. But again, we'll talk about that later. Russo continues and says that he if he can't get Bischoff, he already employs Jim Ross, who did talent relations for the WWE for decades and dealt with, I would say, some quite prickly and awkward to handle personalities backstage then. And I would also throw out there potentially more, manly men to deal with than, say, the Bucks, for example.
And with bigger egos.
Exactly. What, bigger than the Bucks? I'm not sure about that.
I don't know. Hogan, biggest ego in the business. Hall and Nash, huge egos.
Yeah.
So-
Well, he didn't cross paths with Hall and Nash very often. Jim Ross, did he?
No, I suppose. Yeah.
No. Okay. But I thought, that. I thought that was a good shout.
He did with fake Hall and Nash.
Ah, that's true. Yeah, he employed them. That's true. Yeah. Well done, Jim. And but yeah, I think what Russo said is a good shout. Bischoff or Jim Ross in that role, got the experience. In theory, you've got the respect because of the experience they have in the business.
Yep.
You know.
I saw a former UFC/MMA fighter called Josh Barnett. He does Josh Barnett's Bloodsport events around WrestleMania every year. He said he would be the locker room leader, and if there was ever any issues, they could always try and take it outside with him.
Right.
So I think this is the problem with it being with AEW being this super indie.
Yes.
You said it perfectly that Tony Khan has been such a mark for the likes of CM Punk, for the likes of the Bucks, that he's made a rod for his own back, and he's very. He doesn't like giving jobs out. He doesn't like. He tends to micromanage everything. I mean, he's essentially doing 5 hours of wrestling programming. He's booking everything. He's overseeing everything. There's no delegation of tasks. And when you give wrestlers with the egos of the Bucks and Punk the authority, you're going to run into problems, and that's exactly what's happened. It's a bed of his own making.
Yeah, 100%. Connor at Connor Knows Footy on Twitter. He says we have missed his debut on the Volley Show podcast,
sir.
Recapping game week 4 for the Premier League. If you haven't checked it out yet, it's worth a listen for Dan Griffin's Team of the Match Week each show as well.
Yeah,
I have checked it out. I enjoyed it, and I watched the lives too because they have a great time in the chat there as well, Magsy.
Yeah, I'm really, really happy for the guys there, and I'm sure that sometime during the season I'll pop across and have a little watch along with them. You
need to have a pie as well for this, by the way.
Okay.
They've got their halftime pie club. It's kind of a ritual now. It started off as a bit of a joke, but it's what they do now.
Why with this group of guys that we've cultivated, does everything revolve around food?
I don't know, mate. I don't know. But yeah, you got to have a pie for halftime. There's halftime pie club T-shirts, jingles, the whole shebang, mate.
Amazing,
so, yeah.
amazing.
They're proper invested, doubling down on it. It's well worth it.
Sharon says Dan doesn't like it when she watches.
Sharon in the chat there saying
that Dan doesn't like it.
Yes, because she will just send Dan a Cody gif every time he's live, just to see his reaction because he hates Cody.
His favorite gif.
Yeah, totally. Speaking of Dan Griffin, we have his partner in crime from the UTT podcast at UTT Rob. And this is, I suppose, something more for you, Magsy, because I've not seen this, but I'm assuming you probably have. Rob asks, did Mission to Burnley make Burnley's ownership structure look good?
No.
Okay. Well, talk me through this then, because I've not seen it.
So it follows on kind of along the lines of the Amazon Prime shows like the Arsenal behind the scenes, the Tottenham behind the scenes, things like that. But I think this one was done by Sky. And it's essentially just a vlog of how Burnley were relegated and then basically came back to glory with the record-breaking season that they had last year. The problem for me with the owner structure is when they first took over, we were Burnley fans were giving all these promises that this club's going to have lots of money. We're going to be potentially contending with the bigger teams, but it was a leverage purchase. So basically, what that means is that the club goes into debt to pay the purchase, kind of like what's happened with Man United.
I'm familiar with this structure, yes.
So the club currently has, I think, a $65 million loan but it's only been paid interest only, so that loan is still hanging over there. And the thing with
Okay.
Burnley is because Burnley is such a close knit club to the town, it's only ever been owned by local people. It's only ever been owned by people who support the club. So it's never been a club that has gone into debt. It's always been run at a profit. So to then be a club that's now running in the red, it was quite worrying. And then you get on to Alan Pace, the chairman, and he seems to want everybody to like him. And I understand that, but he's running a business, and he's very micromanaging. He wants to be involved in every single part of the club, which I understand. His company have bought the club, but you employ managers to come in and manage, like he has with a company. But there's scenes where he's saying good things about the club and that we are doing way better than he expected, and the company is the right man for the job. And then there's other scenes where he's saying we've spent way too much on transfers and we're 26 million in the hole, and we need to be in the Premiership the first time. So he says a lot of contradicting things. And then there's the whole Mormon issue. The whole group is Mormons. So the show is called Mission. The show is called Mission.
Sorry. When you said Mormons, I misheard you. I thought you said Moomins.
I mean, it looks like a Moomin anyway.
Oh, well, that's a completely different board of directors of the Moomins own your club. Sorry, carry on.
It's actually really interesting because Burnley has a quite a big Mormon community within spitting distance of Turf Moor. There are two quite big Kingdom Hall Mormon churches, and that's why the show is called Mission to Burnley, because of the Mormon link. But I think in the show, Vincent Kompany comes out looking absolutely amazing.
Right.
I mean, this is a guy who had very little managerial experience when he got the job at Burnley. I think he'd only been at Anderlecht. Was it Anderlecht? And he'd not really done well there. But his mental prowess in football and his work ethic and the way he's just took to management like an absolute duck to water, and he's got the old school mentality of really kind of like making his players believe in themselves, but he also has the scientific technical side of it down. So he's a real kind of hybrid manager. You can tell he has learned a lot under Pep, and I fully see him being the next Man City manager. The guy is Burnley's definitely a stepping stone for him. But yeah, it's an interesting show. Go if you have the opportunity, you can go and watch it. I think it's on Daily Motion, some of the episodes, so you can definitely check it out.
Probably on the on demand, isn't it, as well? Probably find it on there somewhere.
Yeah. It's on Sky Documentaries. It was on Sky Documentaries, I think.
I think I've got that.
It just felt like a bit of a fluff piece. It felt like it was a show to make people like Alan Pace and the ALK team. And they come off a little bit disingenuous. But, I mean, fair play to the guys. They got Burnley back into the Premiership in one season.
Yeah.
Whether we stay there or not is another thing. But it's an interesting show.
Yeah. Okay. I'll give it a watch, mate. That sounds very good. I've got a bit of a soft spot for Burnley as well. I said before, haven't I? I've got a few mates.
I mean, a lot of people do.
And that sort of stuff. So.
They've got one of the biggest followings in America as well.
Really?
For such a small club. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Rob also continues the effects of sport washing on sport/wrestling. Okay. Now, the Saudi League, obviously, we're looking at is a big deal because that's really exploded in recent times. And you've obviously got the WWE thing with their contracts where they have Saudi shows.
The golf thing. Was it the LRV golf kind of setup that was taking all the players from the PGA. The thing is, they've got so much money in the Saudi oil money that it's hard to see a way that they don't take over sports, and in doing that kind of hide the fact that they commit such horrific atrocities. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a good look, is it? But the thing is, people are fickle.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people are fickle, and it's that. I look at the WWE shows in Saudi, for example, okay, because they were the ones that really sort of started off this, to my knowledge, anyway, to me in my bubble, my world.
It put an eye on it, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Loads of people online, all over the place, critical, not going to watch it, disgusting, horrible, and, you know, going to boycott this and cancel WWE Network and all that sort of hashtag stuff flying around, which you get sometimes. They still fucking watched it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and all it takes is for them to have a couple of big moments, a couple of big names, a couple of big surprises on these shows, and people ain't going to give a shit anymore. They'll still watch it.
Yeah, and it just goes. It goes to show with sports, as with pretty much any big business, money talks.
Yes.
And if the money is right, people will happily turn a blind eye to pretty much anything. Yeah,
and the Saudi league as well, the Saudi football league as well. They're attracting some of the biggest names in the game. Obviously, you know, Ronaldo going over there was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
He's at the end of his career, of course, but then the brand level of Cristiano Ronaldo is huge anyway. Mo Salah's the one they're talking about. So many players of name value, not even older guys, have gone over there. Now, there's going to be a point. It can go one or two ways. One, I think less likely is that it blows up in their face like it did with China and these other leagues, Russia for a little while, because they obviously have a different setup financially to be able to run these things, so it's not necessarily going to happen. The other one is it's going to become a point where the league is no longer a bit of a laughing stock. Dan Griffin in the chat there saying Mo Salah is going fucking nowhere. Wash your dirty whore, my fight. Okay, we'll see, mate. Money talks, doesn't it? Money talks.
Mm-hmm.
Klopp as well, mate. He'll be Germany manager soon. Anyway, it's going to get to a point where they attract so many names and so many players that the European TV companies, because of the potential advertising you could get by getting eyes on your screen, on your channel, because you can say Mo Salah, Cristiano Ronaldo, and et cetera, are playing in this game. It's going to get to a point where the advertisers will be willing to pay for advertising spots. The money will be there for these TV companies, and they will show it over here. And then inevitably, once it starts being shown, all those fickle people who can't stick to their guns and like to just rant and shout about how terrible this is, terrible that is, will eventually start watching it because it'll be talked about too much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it will start to be the one to watch. In the same way, you got to bear in mind, back in the early 90s, there was huge criticism for Serie A in Italy because of the money they were throwing around. And it was disgusting they were doing that. Serie A by the mid-90s was the league to watch. You know, the Premier League, mid-90s, money getting thrown around all over the place. By the end of the 90s, league to watch. But people bitched and moaned back in 94. It's just the way football works. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
remember giving Blackburn loads of grief when they essentially bought the title when they signed the likes of Shearer and Sutton. And you look at the fees now, what they spent, and you couldn't buy a youth player for the money that they spent now. So yeah, it's absolutely money talks, and money will make a lot of people forgive some of the most horrific things.
I mean that front two for 2/3 of the season were fantastic. Sutton went off the boil towards the end of the year, but the year they won the league, and Shearer was what, £3.5 million? Chris Sutton cost them £5 million from Norwich.
Then sold him on for was it like 15 to Chelsea?
Yeah, just different levels of money now, isn't it?
And then they sold Shearer to Newcastle for around about the same. 15 million wouldn't get you a bench warmer now.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Danny at Scottish Juggalo on Twitter. Danny, it's awesome to see you in the chat, my friend. It's been a little while since Danny and I, we message back and forth, of course, but it's been a little while since we've actually spoken or anything like that. Danny's got a few things going on that he's sorting out, and he's having a little bit of a break from Nitro Nights and so on. You know, everyone has a couple of days off here and there, so that's the way. Danny's having a bit of a chill time. We'll be back to Nitro Nights very, very soon, I hope. But it's great to see you in the chat, Danny, and great to see you contributing as always here on a Monday night. Yeah. Danny says, lots of talk about firings, suspensions, backstage scuffles, threats to life, broken glass, releases, etc., etc. Finally, some good news happened. Who should be Great Khali's final opponent? And he's included a clip here saying, the Great Khali returns at WWE Superstar Spectacle. Says he has one more match left in him. Magsy, who would you like to see wrestle the Great Khali?
I mean, for as bad a wrestler he was, and he was one of the worst wrestlers, the guy has become iconic. It's become absolutely iconic. I mean, they drafted him in to replace Becky Lynch for the Spectacle. I mean, can you imagine him facing someone like AJ Styles? I'm sure AJ could carry him to a 5-star match.
Well, this is the thing. I imagine there'd be
Finn
two
Balor.
ways of looking at it. Yeah, Finn Balor. To me, there's two ways of looking at it from a wrestler standpoint. Part of me, if I was a pro wrestler, part of me would be thinking, oh yeah, that'd be good. But part of me would be thinking, as a challenge, I'd love an opportunity to try and get a good match out of this guy. But then there must be some other people, and another part of me would be thinking as well, I'm not touching that with a fucking barge pole, mate.
I mean, yeah, I get it, but just imagine the rub of being Khali's last opponent. Because the guy is an icon. People, shit on him as a wrestler, but he's turned everyone around. People absolutely adore him. So, yeah, I mean, someone like Damian Priest could carry him to a good match.
I don't know if anyone could, mate. I really don't. Well, Barry Windham, obviously.
Chad Gable.
Okay, yeah. There you go. Okay, I'll go with that. I'll happily see that.
Yeah, Walter.
Oh yeah, imagine those chops.
See this, get him back for a run, not one match, full run.
No. The guy.
Give him a towel for him to hold upside down. That'd be amazing.
Listen to you, fucking hell. Dan Griffin at Dan Griffin 21 in the chat. He says, a flight from Atlanta to Barcelona had to return to Atlanta 2 hours into its journey because a passenger had diarrhea all through the plane, he puts here in quote marks. Mm-hmm. So they had to fly 2 hours back due to it being a biohazard. It was literally flowing in the aisle. Imagine the smell.
Yeah, so I heard this story from a YouTube channel that I'm subscribed to called Internet Today. And yeah, it sounded horrific. And it literally was all up and down the aisle. When the plane got back to Atlanta, the ground crew ripped the carpet out because it was unsalvageable. People were recording it, and a guy was actually laughing, saying it was one of the funniest things he'd ever seen. But the amount of people just retching. This poor woman, and it was actually a woman who
oh, was it?
Yeah, which I was shocked at. She.
Well, women poo as well, Mags.
I know, but it's not normally. If you hear about diarrhea all up and down a certain area, you think dirty man.
Yeah, fair point.
Yeah, but it sounded grim, absolutely grim.
Yeah, and I don't know how much you've got there on Twitter, but there was a conversation after this message about what happened and pictures and so on. And no, we're not going to show them here on YouTube on the live stream because we will get. No, we don't. Magsy, don't do it. Don't do it, Mags.
Oh, I'm not going onto the TMZ. I didn't realize it was a link, but yeah, it was horrific. So the Internet Today guys, there are a couple of guys called Ricky and Elliot. They were talking about other flights that they've been on. This is a regular thing, especially in American flights.
What, people shitting in the aisle?
Yeah, one guy Ricky said where his footwell was, there was diarrhea and blood, and he had to ask the stewardesses to clean it, and they just gave him a towel to basically mop up this person's shit and blood. Yeah, it's a regular thing. Yeah, grim.
That is, it can't be a regular thing.
When the host of a show commenting on this story has said, yes, this has happened to me as well. That's 2 times is too regular.
There's something seriously wrong with America, isn't there?
Yeah, they're grim. It's absolutely grim.
We have Ben, who has just joined us in the chat, by the way, at Witticisms of Ben on Twitter.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
How are you?
He says, we missed the debut of the Middle Class Alarm on Randomister's podcast. We did.
We did.
We'll have to go back and check that out, mate.
Will.
My podcast listening has just dropped to virtually non-existent in the last few weeks, and that fly just landed on my sodding forehead then.
It's going into business for itself. But yeah, I'm the same. It's finding the time to be able to listen to podcasts, especially you now with your new role.
Yeah, well, I had my induction today.
That's cool.
I don't know about that, mate. It's sitting in a room talking about health and safety, but it's got to be done, and it is the way it is. And they did it in a way that was much quicker than other places I've worked at, so fair play to them. But one of the things they said, and one of the little slideshow jobbies they brought up on the big screen was, I'm allowed an earphone in, as long as it's only one, to listen to whatever I want to during the day. So hopefully, once I get a little bit more settled in what I'm doing, so I got, if I mix some chemicals wrong, stuff goes terribly wrong. So I've got to pay a bit of attention. But
I mean, I can't imagine a company confidently trusting you to mix chemicals.
Well, it's literally my job, mate. That is literally my job. That's what I do all day. That, and then when it's molded, what it needs to be taken out of the molds and so on. But yeah, so I'm hopefully can start listening to stuff again, because my bus journey to work now is so short, it's pointless even pressing play on anything. And I don't catch the bus home because my fantastic wife will pick me up because I finish at a time that...
Oh, she must like you.
I don't think she does, but it's just easier because it coincides with the school run, where the time I finish and where I'm working now, so she can just grab me before getting the girls. So yeah, it works out quite nicely, mate.
Oh yeah, that sounds really good. Dan Griffin says in the chat, whoever voiced that middle class alarm must be a fantastically handsome northern gentleman.
I'm guessing it was Cam then.
Brilliant. Cam also does add to one of the stories. Says his friend who was an air hostess, and she once saw a guy squat, slightly lift his dress / outfit, and shit on the floor in the middle of the airport. See, so it's a regular thing.
What is wrong with people? Why?
People are dirty cunts.
Why?
It's horrific.
Oh, for goodness sake. And finally, and I'm assuming this is going to maybe cause a little bit of a debate in the chat and here as well, so let's all try and keep it civil. We come to Total Steve-O, and Steve-O says, I genuinely want to hear about what happened with CM Punk and your thoughts and opinions. Talking of which, AEW All In, which was the Wembley show, wasn't it? Because All Out was the one afterwards. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes. All In. Did you watch, and what did you think? Well, we'll take the first one first, Magsy. Okay. Steve-O's asking what happened with CM Punk and our thoughts and opinions about it. I think it can be quite easily boiled down to what we were saying at the start of the show. It's a company ran by a bit of a wet lettuce, and he's surrounded by petulant, egotistical children. Punk, the Bucks, and the Elite. They're all as bad as each other, aren't they?
They are. I mean, Punk has always had a massive ego anyway.
Yes.
And then giving him control of a show. I mean, the whole point of Collision, the extra show, was to keep him away from the Elite and the Bucks anyway. So giving him kind of like autonomy over that show, it kind of made his head swell. He was then reacting to things that other wrestlers probably wouldn't react to. I think Nick Nemeth put a message up on Twitter that Punk took offense to. Jungle Boy had an issue with some glass, and Punk told him that he should be using fake glass rather than real glass, and that
Jungle Boy's a dick about that, by the way.
There's nobody in the right in this situation. No. But there is levels of wrongness, and I think Punk's levels of wrongness are pretty high. So Jungle Boy obviously taking offense to the comments about using fake glass rather than real glass. In his match on the pre-show, used real glass, came up to the camera and said, cry me a river, that's real glass. And then when he went backstage, Punk apparently got in his face, tried to choke him. There was a scuffle. TV monitors went flying. Tony Khan feared for his life. Apparently, Samoa Joe came in and kind of cooled everything down. Punk was going to leave before his match even started, but he was talked around to having his match. But I think even before the show, he hadn't been picked up from the airport, so he had to get a cab himself. There's images of him leaving on a train after the show, so he left early.
Well, he had to get shown his hotel, where his hotel was, by a fan. A fan had to take him to his hotel because he had to use the tube and so on. Now, this is one of your, regardless of what people think of Punk, and I'm a big CM Punk fan for his in-ring abilities, his promo abilities, and so on. The behind the stage stuff is just, it sours the whole thing for me. And it genuinely upsets me that I now have this opinion of Punk that isn't as high as it once was because I was such a big fan. And it is quite a sad thing for me. But you look at it from a business standpoint, Punk's the biggest draw they've had. Okay, regardless of how well the company's doing and so on, you look at the shows where Punk has initially turned up, and so he has hit the biggest numbers AEW have had on television and pay-per-view. The main promotion revolved around the CM Punk match or appearance, and that's not open for debate. That's fact. You can go and find these figures out quite easily. They're out there. You know. Yeah. Now, he's also, I'm assuming, costing Tony Khan and AEW quite a bit of money financially.
I think it's $6 million a year.
Right. So he's naturally going to be one of the most highest paid guys there because of his name brand. And of course, you are paying for those numbers that he did bring into the, the eyes on the, and that's how, the business works and all that sort of stuff. So if that's the case, and you got a guy as well, I suppose this is kind of irrelevant because it shouldn't happen to Punk or any other wrestler on the roster, but you're in a foreign country. Okay, it's London. It's not like you're out in Mozambique or something like that.
It's still the same. He's not from that area. It's not this is the second biggest wrestling company in the world doing the biggest wrestling show ever.
And it's fucking hour.
The guy has to find his way from the airport to the arena and then from the arena to the hotel. It's ridiculous. Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous.
And a fan has to guide him on the tube. I'd be fuming if that scenario was,
Absolutely. But you can't have the reactions that he has. I mean, he was touting himself as being this locker room leader, especially for Collision. So he's basically saying to all the other wrestlers, if you have a problem, be aggressive, be violent about it, throw your toys.
Yeah, and that's not acceptable.
Yeah, exactly.
But I also want to put another spin on this. And again, I'm not saying, it may sound like I'm defending Punk, but I'm really not. This is a conversation me and Sharon have had at length over the last couple of weeks, and we are planning on doing a recording ourselves, diving into this and talking about it, and AEW over the last month or so in general. We were supposed to do it this week, but time just got away with us. It is going to be coming. But I also want to shine a light on where we're hearing these things from. Now, we're all fully aware, because it's not a secret in the slightest, that Dave Meltzer gets a lot of information from the Bucks, from Hangman Page. I'm not so sure. I was going to say from Kenny as well, but I'm not so sure Kenny's on the same level as the Bucks.
Yeah, not certainly not as much as the Bucks, but he's very friendly with Dave Meltzer. Let's just say
okay. I sometimes, to me, there's two sides to every story, and I think sometimes, because Punk doesn't come out and put forward his side as freely as we hear other information from, shall we say, sources that are linked very much to the other side of the argument, I think that can quite easily slight the general public's viewpoint. You know, Sharon in the chat there saying, "Don't you dare sour my hangman with your dirty mouth, Simon." Okay, Sharon. But there's a lot of stuff that comes out, whether it is via Meltzer or via other sites and so on. We all know where the information is coming from. It's openly the lines of conversation, the lines of communication between the elite, for want of a better phrase, and Meltzer and the dirt sheets. It's well established and well known.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas Punk and Punk's camp don't tend to do that as much. You hear other sources or other podcasters who say, "Well, I spoke with this person. They are my friend. They said this," but that doesn't get as well publicized because it's not getting as retweeted or not getting put out on platforms that are as established as Meltzer and these other writers, other podcasters, and so on. I think with regards to, the biggest thing, Magsy, we've got from this is that both of us have said no one is in the right here. They're all acting like petulant children, and they've got no one in charge to give them a slap on the wrist and say, "Don't you fucking do that again."
Yeah.
Right?
It makes the Cody move seem perfectly timed. I mean,
Well, this is it.
You've got to remember that AEW was essentially founded on the back of Cody leaving WWE, wanted to become his out of his dad's shadow, the whole challenge with Dave Meltzer, and that kind of started the ball rolling for All Elite Wrestling. But I think Cody had a plan to always get back to the WWE, and with the Punk stuff and the book stuff, he clearly saw that this isn't the company that I thought it was going to be.
Yeah,
took the offer and ran. The problem is there's so many thin skins with a lot of these top tier wrestlers in AEW that they shouldn't be reacting to these stories out in the wrestling sphere. I mean, if you saw a story about a WWE wrestler and then the WWE wrestler going on a mad tirade about it, you'd think that's really unprofessional. But yet people like Punk and the Bucks think that's how you should react. And it just shows it's still very carny in AEW.
But again, that's the sort of point I was trying to make. You have these reactions and so on, but you don't hear from Punk. And I think that's a problem because the spin is always, Jim Cornette is a big issue sometimes. He runs his mouth, he says a lot of nonsense and so on. But when you hear Cornette talk about this topic, he sums it up far better than I. He'll say, well, the Bucks have said this and done this and spoke to Meltzer about this. And everyone just takes that as gospel. What about Punk's side of the story? Now, Punk may turn around and go, "That's exactly what happened, mate. I'm a dickhead." Whatever. But it's so easy to just read something online, and especially if you're a fan of the Bucks, because the Bucks are the ones, from what I can gather, are a little bit more that way. If you're a fan of the Bucks, because it is quite culty, isn't it? The whole being the elite YouTube and following and all that. You're instantly gonna paint the CM Punk, FTR, whoever else is on that sort of side of the line as the bad guy, and they don't defend themselves. And I'm not saying that they should come out ranting and shouting and fighting fire with fire. That's not the right way of doing this. But at the same time, defend yourself. Have something to say. I think as well. You mentioning Cody leaving is really interesting as well, because the amount of stories you hear, and again on various podcasts from the likes of Conrad Thompson and his network and so on, and people involved in there, Jim Ross speaks quite openly about issues in AEW with the young talent not wanting to listen. And I think a lot of the young talent I'm far from an expert, of course. It's just my opinion. I know nothing in comparison to many people in the CWF, and I know nothing to these people like Jim Ross, of course, and Cornette and all these people. Far more knowledgeable than I could ever dream of being. However, I look at people in AEW and I think to myself, you're an indie wrestler who's got on TV and has got TV money, and you think you've made it. So then when you get the likes of Arn Anderson, who has openly spoken about issues backstage and the young wrestlers not wanting to, well, there you go, Cam in the chat. Arn needs to start enforcing spine busters all over the guff.
He doesn't even need to do spine busters anymore. He's got that Glock and he just pop, pop, pop.
There we go. But Arn Anderson openly talks about issues backstage with the younger wrestlers not wanting to listen. Jake the Snake Roberts was a producer backstage for a while. He was an agent producing matches. He says exactly the same thing, to the point where he walked away from the company for a few months.
Yeah.
Because he was like, what's the point of me talking to Jungle Boy? What's the point of me talking to Best Friends? Because they don't want to fucking know, you know? And if you're not listening to minds like Jim Ross, Jake the Snake Roberts, Arn Anderson, I'm sorry, Bucks, Hangman, Omega, Elite, CM Punk, all of you guys, none of you understand the business like they fucking do. They made money when you had. They made money when you had to go out and make the money. You had to tell a story in the ring.
They had Regal there. They had William Regal there, and another story that came out about Punk, and again, it may be from the Bucks feed information, was that CM Punk belittled Regal, calling him a Triple H's stooge, and he hated him and stuff like that. So if the likes of CM Punk is causing drama of that magnitude, what hope is there that someone like Ricky Starks is not going to have that kind of attitude? Not saying that Ricky Starks has an attitude, but the likes of him, the likes of Jungle Boy having attitude, you reap what you sow, and if your locker room leader is acting like that, the rest of the team are going to act like that.
With regards to Punk disrespecting Regal, I 100% believe that happened. It sounds like something that would come out of Punk's mouth. I firmly believe that he is of the mindset of, I will speak my mind, fuck the consequences. I firmly believe that he would have said that. However, I don't know the context or how far it went with regards to those comments in that conversation. Because again, this came from Dave Meltzer's podcast.
Yeah. So
who's giving Meltzer that information?
Exactly.
Because it ain't going to be Regal. And it ain't going to be Punk. So where's that coming from?
Exactly.
You know? And then at the same time, the following day, after these stories came out, and again, they came out on Twitter, and you had all the secondary sites, all the Jobsworths rewording it and putting it out there as their own story and all that sort of shit. Somebody else shared a picture of Punk backstage hugging William Regal. Now, that wasn't Punk. That wasn't Regal. But somebody's out there saying, well, hang on a second. Look at this here. This is just after Regal starts. It's that kind of scenario again, isn't it?
That kind of stuff gets buried in all the noise of the drama. Because as with anything, drama will get more headlines than good news or feel good stories. Drama will always trump that. Because that's just it's human nature. We revel in other people's misfortune.
I think we're not going to fully understand and have clarity on this whole scenario for many years yet. I think more information is going to come out and things are going to get cancelled. Things are going to get exposed as not being true. Other things will come out as being true. And I think this is something that people are going to be revisiting for years.
The actual truth will be somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, there you go. And finally, from Steve-O, we have AEW All In. Did you watch? What did you think? I did watch on television. I know Steve-O went to All In. I know there's people in the chat as well that went to All In. I thought it was a spectacle because it's at Wembley. It was incredible, the visuals and so on. I think it was a very AEW event, and I'm kind of getting to a point now where I still enjoy watching the shows, but I get frustrated with 87 fucking super kicks and how many pile drivers did they kick out of and all. But it's not. I don't mind it too. It's not as extreme if it's only on a paper. This is the biggest wrestling show of all time. If everyone kicks out everyone else's finisher on this one night to get the near falls and the spectacles, whatever, okay, so be it. I can see what they're trying to do. Don't agree, but I can see what they're trying to do. But when they do it on the weekly television as well, it really waters it down when you get to the pay-per-view. I enjoyed All In, but I've still got issues with AEW and the way they put matches together. It's kind of my standpoint. What about you, Magsy?
Yeah, so you make some good points. As a show, I really enjoyed it. I thought the atmosphere was great. All the wrestlers came out and really give it their all for the show. My issue, and again, this goes back to Tony Khan, was the booking. I mean, it was only 3 weeks out before the show that we got any kind of matches signed. And he was doing All Out the week after, and it felt like he was doing 2 massive pay-per-views and spreading himself way too thin. And the build for the matches didn't quite hit home for me. But in terms of the action and watching it, yeah, I take your point that it's a little bit too much, but that's the indie style of wrestling. That's how it is, and AEW is it's the super indie show. But as a standalone wrestling show, I enjoyed the hell out of it. It was well paced. The crowd, I mean, a British crowd makes a wrestling show 100 times better anyway, and that crowd were absolutely amazing all the way through the show. And just the spectacle of it being the biggest show, the most paid in attendance, all those things. What AEW as a company has achieved in the 3 to 4 years of being around is phenomenal. They just need to now buckle down and become that alternative to WWE that they said they were going to be.
But again, we're getting a little bit off track here. I'm sort of keeping an eye on the time as well. So we'll come back around to our actual wrestling topic in a moment. But I've said it on numerous different podcasts. I've said it on this show plenty of times as well. I love the spectacle. I love the athleticism. I mean, I criticize the Bucks a great deal because of how they put matches together, but you can't take away from how talented these guys are when it comes to their movesets. I mean, I'm a big fan of tag team wrestling. These guys do so many synchronized double team moves. It's exactly what I want from tag team wrestling. But at the same time, if you kick out of 50 super kicks, the 51st doesn't mean shit.
Yeah.
If you do 8 backflips in a move, you might as well do 9. You might as well do 10 because no one's going to give a shit.
Yeah.
And that may be amazing. I was going to say that may be amazing to watch now. I think that may be amazing to have watched 12 months ago. I think it's already jumped the shark a little bit. For me personally, I'm already kind of over how spectacular these athletes are. And now I'm thinking, okay, your finisher now doesn't mean a damn thing because this guy's kicked out of it 3 times on a pre-show rather than that's kind of my mindset. Do you know what I mean? But there we go. I thought very quickly, All Out was a better structured wrestling show. There was more one-on-one matches. There was more, I suppose, proper wrestling matches involved, more storylines in the ring, more stories being told rather than just a spot fest. I had a problem with All In because there were so many multi-person matches as well. I think it waters down any one person achieving anything because there's so many moving parts. But that's my own personal taste. So,
yeah, absolutely spot on.
There we go. Shall we scan through the chat very quickly, Magsy?
Very quickly might be a bit of a push because these guys in the CWF are absolutely amazing, and there's a lot of comments. But let's go to this one. Sharon saying, Cam, they are being really horrible to me. Give Dan a punch next time you see him. Brilliant. You started the GIF war, Sharon, says Dan, and you will end it, Dan, says King's Pigs Banner. Cam says he can't punch him. Only see him when I take my girls around, and they'd start beating me, Dan, if I laid a hand on Uncle Dan. I still think I could take him, though. Dan Griffin says, I'd fight dirty, Cam, bear hug, twist of the nuts, and a big daddy belly bounce out the front window. Brilliant.
The front I hope off the windowsill as well. You know,
The twist of the nuts is the best part, though. Just to rub it in.
top that Jacksons, you fuckers.
Scottish Danny says Tata slipping on his face will be the most memorable moment ever when it comes to WWE in Saudi Arabia. Not Braun Strowman winning that horrific green belt then.
No,
which we've never ever seen since.
If I was him, I'd still be carrying that around everywhere.
I mean, it's the most important title he's ever won.
Yeah.
Cam says he's too fast for you, Dan. He's like a whippet.
I think there's money in this. I think this can be put together as a charity match of some description.
It's the Usos of the CWF, isn't it?
There we go.
We've moved them onto separate shows now, but eventually they're going to come together for a Cam v Dan spectacular. Dan says the interesting thing about will be if the Saudis are determined to buy their way into UEFA competition, then you think FFP would apply. Yeah, I mean, it would not surprise me.
FFP doesn't apply to clubs now. Man City get away with it. Do you
it
know what I mean?
applies to certain clubs. Again, going back to the mission to Burnley, there's a point where Burnley get a transfer embargo because they are a couple of days late filing their audits, but yet City spend hundreds and hundreds of millions on players. Don't take it anywhere near that in profits, but yet get away with it. But that's the way it is. Dominic Mysterio gets a couple of votes for Carly's last match there. And King Pigs Banner says it's impossible to make Carly look good. Horrific take there, King Pigs Banner. I think it's impossible to make him look bad. I've never seen a bad Carly match.
We watched 3 on this show.
They weren't bad. They were short. That makes them pretty good.
Does it? Really? Okay.
Let's scroll down now to Scottish Danny saying, if anything, this whole thing has proven yet again how biased and accurate Dave Meltzer and the rest of his dirt sheets truly are. But Ben makes a good point. At least we got to see the Pepsi plunge at All In.
That's true.
We did. That was brutal. He also
Joe Punk was very good. I thought it was very good match.
He also says, as mad as Cornette is, every now and again he comes out of a line, and I think he's absolutely on point there. I think the thing with Cornette is kind of in the same mold as Bischoff and Russo. They've got a character and they play up to it, but you do get those little nuggets of knowledge that absolutely do make sense, but you just have to kind of dig into the ranting and raving, I suppose. King's Pig Banner says a broken corner is still right twice a day. Absolutely brilliant. Tank Abbott wouldn't take Jack Perry's shit.
No.
Cam Griffin says, isn't Dean Malenko in creative as well? I think the problem with AEW's creative is that it's kind of like Vince. Everything runs through Tony and he makes the final decision. But he's making the final decision for 5 hours of programming a week, which is it's too much, especially for someone on the Colombian sniffing powder as he is.
Malenko is another road agent, isn't he? I suppose is the name the WWE use for that role.
Producer, yeah.
Yeah, he helps put together matches and so on, isn't he? But also he's quite poorly, isn't he? Is it Alzheimer's he's suffering from?
Is it not Parkinson's?
Yeah. So I don't know how much he's actually involved now. I know 6 months ago he was very involved, but
yeah. Ben and Scottish Danny both agree that Punk belittling Regal is sacrilege. And then Dan makes a good point in saying Regal knocked the shit out of a massive lunk like Van Hammer. He turned Punk into mince. Yeah, I mean, look at when he went to town on Goldberg.
Yes.
I mean, Goldberg was a massive lump then. Kind of like Punk in that he was very resistant to other people's ideas. He just wanted to come in, do his 2 minutes, and get out there. And Regal actually wrestled him, and he got into trouble for that as well, didn't he?
Yeah. Bischoff was not a fan of Regal harming the Golden Goose.
Scottish Danny says he read on Twitter that Regal may have been sent to AEW to spar from Farfel.
Fightful.
It's Farfel Select, because you've got to pay $5 behind the paywall to get that information.
Okay.
Dan says everyone should watch Impact instead. Sharon says she loved All In, apart from the last match. That was shot. MJF versus Adam Cole was shot. I mean,
it's just
bad ending.
Yeah,
I think Adam Cole should have won, but I think
that's what
great
Sharon's getting
storytelling.
at. She wanted Adam Cole. She's a massive Adam Cole fan, isn't she? And rightfully so. The guy's fantastic.
Yeah. Cam says, is this discussing AEW or 95-96 WCW pay-per-view? A little bit of both.
Spot on.
Scotty saying he's just finished watching Victory Road. So yeah, everyone. I mean, Impact, the little company that could, and they're still going now. You very rarely hear of any drama coming out of there. They just get on with their own thing. Yeah, absolutely superb. Yeah, everyone should be watching Impact. Apart from the fact that Tommy Dreamer is now the digital media champion. Not happy with that.
Isn't Tommy Dreamer like 96 years old now?
I think he's mid-50s. But in terms of digital media, he's not the best on social media. Let's not forget he tried to condone Ric Flair windmilling somebody.
Yes. Yeah. Oh dear, Tommy.
Scottish Danny says he'll never forget the Carly triple. Yeah, it was that was one of the crowning moments of chain wrestling.
I disagree.
Scott King Big Badders and Dan saying that Impact 1000 is dropping this week. So there is that. And then finally, Dan says, at least now I can skip the digital media match quicker than I already planned to. I mean, once Joe Hendry was not the champion, there's absolutely no point in it being a belt.
Sharon said a bit further up in the chat that she watched a Impact Wrestling match this week. But it turns out, I think Dan Griffin replied that it was from a little while ago. That really surprises me. Sharon, where are you watching Impact?
Jay White versus Alex Shelley, she says.
Yeah, well, Jay White's involved. She's a big Jay White. Oh, Alex Shelley as well. She's a big Alex Shelley fan. Sharon loved the Motor City Machine Guns. And yeah, okay. Where were you watching that shot? That's interesting. Let us know.
Yeah, let us know. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
But that's the chat caught up with.
Fantastic stuff. Thank you so much, everybody, for getting involved with our non-wrestling topic, which ended up being quite wrestling heavy this week. But it's okay. It's okay. It's our first week back. We're sort of easing ourselves back into the routine, Magsy, aren't we?
We certainly are. We
are indeed. Okay, so then I will grab my little notebook and pen because it's about time, I guess. What are you laughing at?
Just you're in the dark. And we've just been talking about the digital media title, like coming into the 2020s, and I'll just grab me little notebook and pen.
Yeah. And I've got a little gap left on the page over here for when you put your link up later, so I can write it down. Yeah, the digital champion. I don't know what that is. What is that? Is it just a title for?
It's Impact's mid-card title, kind of like a TV title, but they're embracing digital media, so streaming, YouTube, Pornhub, whatever.
Pornhub, yeah. Okay. I'm buying Impact's pay-per-views. Right. Magsy, let's talk a bit of wrestling, my friend.
Let's do it.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Okay, I'm still on mute again, aren't I? Still on mute. Why is my reaction so much slower than yours?
It's because you pay for that dodgy dial-up internet.
Yeah, probably, mate. Well, you say pay for it. My selection won this week. Well, from 3 weeks ago, for whenever it was. So we are heading back to 1992 and WrestleMania 8. Randy Savage challenging Ric Flair for the WWF World title. But it's not on last because Hogan must pose, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
This is in the Hoosier Dome, which is an odd name, but it's a bloody massive venue, obviously being a dome. This WrestleMania, Magsy, it's a bit hit and miss for me with match quality. There's some great on there. We've already looked at Roddy Piper versus Bret Hart for this show, and we both rated it very highly. There's some great moments in there. Obviously, it didn't work out well in the end, but the Warriors' surprise return and so on. As a kid,
Repo Man, he's on the show.
He is there as well. You're correct. And this match itself as well, I remember very, very fondly, but we'll get into that in a moment. Then there's also a lot of ropey stuff on there as well, like Skinner taking on Owen Hart and stuff like that. It's a real odd time for wrestling in general. And I feel that 92 ends up being quite a transitional year for the WWF. Because if you look at WrestleMania here in the dome in front of however many tens of thousands of people were there, by the time you hit the last pay-per-view of the year, which was Survivor Series, it's all change.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Ric Flair is not long. By the time you get to the end of 92, Ric Flair is not long for the WWF. This is actually his only WrestleMania appearance in his first WWF run. He doesn't wrestle at Mania again until he comes back as the part owner, and he's a much older man. Hogan is gone, you know, for a while after this, until we get that shitty return at WrestleMania 9. But Hogan is gone. The Warrior returns here, but is gone again quite quickly. Roddy Piper is, as we mentioned, on the card. He's gone as well shortly after this. Yeah. A big part of this storyline between Savage and Flair, Miss Elizabeth, she's gone not too long after this as well, because this is when Savage and Liz were going through their divorce, and as soon as the divorce was finalized, she moved on herself. There's a lot of things changing in the wrestling business. A great deal of it down to the steroid trial that was, you know, kicking up a fuss around this time. But I think when you look at the beginning of 92, especially the 92 Rumble, and then you look at the end of 92, or even the 93
difference.
It's a completely different company, isn't it?
Oh, that 93 Rumble, Jesus. Yeah, WWF was so transitional in this period. A lot of factors, as you just ran through, but going from the beginning of 92, when you've got arguably the best wrestler to enter the squared circle in Ric Flair, you've got the biggest star in the wrestling business in Hulk Hogan, and then 12 months later, it's all gone to pot. Yeah, it's weird to watch, knowing what we know now, how WWF at the time failed with this group of talent.
Yeah, and also I suppose you look at the transitions from lower down in the card. I mean, Shawn Michaels is wrestling his first singles match at WrestleMania here against El Matador, and you can hear all about that in a couple of weeks on the HBK pod, by the way, because we're up to WrestleMania 6, 7, and so on after this. Cheap plug there. Check it out Wednesdays on the SJP World Media Network. But Michaels is wrestling his first singles match at WrestleMania here. So he obviously goes on to be something important. He main events the Survivor Series at the end of the year as the IC champion against Bret Hart, who is the world champion, who is winning the IC title here. So it shows how quickly things change and move around. And by the time Monday Night Raw begins in early 93, even Randy Savage, who's winning the world title here, has been moved into a commentary position.
Yep.
It's so different, isn't it?
It's almost like a football team being relegated and then all the big stars leaving.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it is. Let's dive into it then, shall we? I mean, first of all, we get a brilliant late 80s, early 90s WWF pay-per-view intro with Vince shouting stuff over the top of some very generic, cheesy music.
The Vince shouting over the Royal Rumble ones and the Survivor Series ones were the best.
Yeah. The WrestleMania music, though, that kind of very cheesy stock music that they use for these early manias, I love that. And as soon as I pressed play on the pay-per-view and I started watching the very beginning of the show, it really huge nostalgia vibes for me. This is one of the pay-per-views that I had on VHS that my uncle recorded for me from Sky or however he got hold of it. And I also remember renting it at a later date from the video shop around the corner that my mum used to take me to get a wrestling set during the summer holidays and so on. So this pay-per-view, I got quite a soft spot for. I remember this match being very, very good from my memory. But watching it back, it's not quite how I recall it, Magsy, anyway. When was the last time you saw this yourself before reviewing it for today's show?
I've watched it for an episode of that 90s Wrestling podcast. Props to James and the amazing work he's doing with Cafe de Rene. Immensely proud of the guy. But it's not, despite the fact it's got 2 Hall of Fame wrestlers in it, it's not a match that I go back to too regularly. Especially thinking of, I'll watch the 92 Royal Rumble very, very regularly, and then I won't watch this match. It's really weird that I don't go back to it, but for some reason I just don't.
Now, in an alternative universe, this card would have looked very, very different, because the original plan for a long time was for Hulk Hogan to be wrestling Ric Flair for the WWF World title. Flair was to win the title at the Rumble. Hogan was to face him at WrestleMania. They even had a press conference, which I believe they replay on the pay-per-view at some point, don't they? With Piper and Sid and a few others. The Repo Man
Savage is there.
Yeah, the Repo Man sadly is not. But they're all sat with Jack Tunney in a very, what looks like a school canteen.
And the name of the number 1 contender is Hogan. Yes!
Yeah,
yes!
Exactly. And Hogan gets named as the champion. Challenger for the champion. Sid is very pissed off. They had to sort of divert from this because obviously Hogan decided he was moving on. He was going to step away because of the steroid scandal and so on. And also, Hogan Flair apparently wasn't drawing on the house shows. They did the house show circuit, and people report it didn't do as well as they first thought.
Yeah. I mean, there is that, but there's also the rumors that Hogan wanted to win on his way out. He wanted to essentially beat Ric Flair and then leave the company, which makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Yeah. So yeah, this could have been potentially the biggest WrestleMania match of all time, the biggest wrestling match of all time, with the 2 biggest stars, but Hogan, I suppose.
Indeed. And we're going to come to that whole, again, it's something I say so often on so many shows. Where do we go next? Is a big part of how professional wrestling, in my opinion, should be put together. It can be a bit of an issue of AEW sometimes, I think. They don't think about what's going to happen in a month's time. But here we see at the end, especially, where do we go next? Plays quite a prominent role in how this match is structured and put together. Benny Mack in the chat there saying evening. Hello, Benny. Good to see you, mate. Thank you for joining us. He's joining us on Facebook.
Didn't Linda McMahon music that she eventually used was for WrestleMania? I think she used it after it was the WrestleMania music, didn't she?
Yeah, I don't think she was on screen at this time, was she?
No. But saying that, this is, I think this is the first time we ever see Shane McMahon.
Yes, he turns up, doesn't he? Very young Shane. We have Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan on commentary, which is just comedy gold. You know, it's one of those iconic duos, and Heenan has got his allegiances to Flair and Perfect. Yeah. And you can hear that. Not as strong or as well done as the Rumble a couple of months previous, but still quite good, I think, Magsy.
Yeah, I mean, jumping a little bit ahead, you get the post-match promo, and Flair doesn't nail it as well as he did with the Rumble, but you can still see the chemistry between him and Heenan and Perfect. They were a great team together. They really were.
Yeah. The introductions, the entrances, I instantly thought of you because the champion's out first.
Hate it. Absolutely hate it. But Randy Savage is the star in this match, or he's being made to be the star, obviously coming out with winning the match at the end.
Savage comes out very quickly. He's almost in a sprint jog effort, but I think part of the way out of the entranceway, he realizes how long that aisleway is, and he's thinking,
needs to pace himself.
I'm gonna be out of breath by the time I get down there, you know. so he slows down a touch.
I mean, there's one thing you can't fault Randy Savage for, and it's having energy in his feuds.
Yeah.
I mean, he gets very invested in his feuds. They've become incredibly personal, whether that's him being very protective of Liz or a bit of the old Colombian marching powder, who knows? But he was very exuberant.
We literally had to start talking about the match, but we haven't mentioned the pictures and the controversy surrounding Elizabeth, have we?
No.
WWF magazine being used as part of creative here. We have what are eventually discovered to be photoshopped images.
Doctored photos, yeah.
Doctored photos.
Very ahead of the curve, WWF
Yeah.
with this. You've got the poolside one with the R and the L towels for Rick and Liz. It's a well-told storyline. Don't get me to say they transitioned from it being potentially Hogan versus Ric Flair to Randy Savage being in the mix, to come up with this storyline and get the doctor photos. I think it's really well done.
Yeah, totally. So we had Flair basically saying that he was with Liz previously, and the term damaged goods is used quite a bit. Yeah. So not pleasant way to behave about Mrs. Savage, I suppose. The match begins with Savage being quite quick, attacking Flair as you'd expect. He's fired up. He's had stuff said about his wife and so on. Before Rick backdrops Savage over the top rope. He went high here, Max, didn't he? It wasn't just to sort of go over sideways, land carefully. He went over vertically, didn't he?
He did. It kind of plays into the very personal rivalry of this match. There was no holding back. There was no selling short of the moves. It was just all guns blazing. These two wanted to hurt each other.
Yeah, exactly. Flair uses a delayed vertical suplex here, which I thought looked really impressive. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's something that he busted out too often, especially in his WWF run. Flair's not a small guy, but the WWF really was land of the giants. So you see him working his very few pay-per-view matches. He's working with guys who tend to be a bit bigger than him. But here with Savage, I think he's able to do a few things that he potentially couldn't have done with a Hogan or an Undertaker or whoever he may have worked with, Yeah,
kind of able. And I suppose that shows just how good Flair is of a wrestler, that he can quickly change the style from working with big guys to people more his size, and he's got enough in his repertoire to be able to mix it up.
Yeah. Flair kicks Savage until he falls to the outside again, so we're back outside the ring. And what I notice here is as well, it's something that used to bug me a few years ago, but now I understand it a little bit better, a little bit more, I guess. And it's almost a storytelling or psychological point that wrestlers of a certain era used to do. And again, it's something that I think people in AEW could learn from. Flair slows the pace right down when he is in control, because he is the heel. He is the bad guy. And it's not about being a cool heel or a heel that wants to entertain you. His job is to be the bad guy and get booed and put Savage over as the babyface. So Flair slowing it right down and doing nothing too spectacular means he's not getting cheers or reactions from the crowd, because what he's done is impressive.
Yeah.
Now that, psychologically, storytelling-wise, makes so much sense whenever Savage then turns around and tries to have a comeback, because the crowd are
into it, yeah.
Yeah, because all of a sudden there's a bit more intensity, a bit more speed to what's going on in the ring. So whether you're fully rooting for Savage or not, you're going to react naturally because of the change in pace. And I think that's a really clever little storytelling touch that they can use, Magsy.
Yeah, and it's almost as if Flair and his territory days and his wiliness and the way he was always on a lot of the time he was the heel going into territories. It worked perfectly because he knows how to make a face look like $1 million. He's so good at it.
Yeah, and we get one example of this. Savage gets in just a couple of right hands. The crowd go crazy. And then he hits a net breaker, which looked a bit clunky, looked a bit mistimed potentially. Like there's a bit of a misunderstanding. But the crowd go wild again. And I think that just those simple right hands and then hitting this kind of slightly wonky, slightly off net breaker wouldn't get the reaction it does if it wasn't for Flair slowing it down and doing what he was doing just moments before, maybe.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and it's a testament to how good of a story Flair can tell.
Yeah, definitely. Ric Flair takes control again though by going to the eyes, which is standard heel shit, isn't it? Yeah.
Thumb to the eye.
And then we get more classic Flair as he climbs to the top rope and is caught by Savage and thrown off. Standard Flair. And then Savage spits on him.
It's the greatest hits. Yeah, I mean, Grotta. Savage did like a good spitting at people, though, didn't he?
Yeah, mate. Just give your head a wobble, Randy. That's
COVID, Randy. COVID.
Yeah, you can't be doing that shit. We get the Ric Flair over the top of the corner spot as well here. And I thought this was good as well because Flair at this point does speed things up a little bit. He flips over the ropes, he runs across the apron, climbs the other side, and looks like he might actually hit that move from the top rope, which happens incredibly rarely in his career. But he's caught. Savage punches him on the way down, and the crowd go wild just again for a Savage right hand. It's really, I think it's cleverly, it's very simple, but it's also very cleverly structured, isn't it?
I mean, the pops that Randy was getting for simple clotheslines. He hits 2 or 3 clotheslines in a row, and the crowd were going ballistic. And a lot that you have to give the props to Ric Flair for that because he's built up the heat so well that anything that Savage does in terms of offense is getting just a massive pop.
We get what I suppose in modern day wrestling now, because everything is so exaggerated and over the top and crazy, seems quite tame, but we get what back in 92 was a relatively, it was a high spot, wasn't it? Savage hitting that axe handle from the top rope to the floor.
Double axe handle,
yeah. I mean, Savage is what? He must be 6'2". I think he's billed as 245, weight wise. That's a big old bloke jumping off that top rope, and he must be a 15-foot drop there.
A 15-foot might be a stretch.
Well, no, he doesn't jump, does he? He literally just sort of steps down gingerly. Yeah. But I suppose we get that.
It's probably about 9 foot.
Okay.
But yeah,
it still looks pretty spectacular, yeah.
Early 90s, that's a high spot.
Yeah, definitely.
And
this sends Flair onto the barrier.
And Flair literally looks at the camera and bleeds. And he got fined for this, didn't he? It was very, very obvious he was reaching. I mean, he didn't technically look at the camera, but the camera does focus in on him. His head's on the floor, and you can see him reaching for the blade and swiping across the forehead. Yeah, he got a slap on the wrist for this. I think a few $1,000 fine.
Yeah. Earlier on in the card, obviously there's blood in Piper Brett as well. But they got away with it because Brett made it.
They said it was an accident.
Yeah, and it was.
Weren't really. It was very bad. They were both.
Savage hits another X handle, but this time in the ring, and that's of course the setup for his top rope elbow finisher. The crowd are going wild for this because they think this is it, and Flair's like,
I mean, technically, it usually is when Savage hits this elbow and he delays on the corner and he's there for edge, and the crowd are going mental. Lands it perfectly, and then Perfect comes in. Brilliant timing. And I've got to give props in this to Earl Hebner because the way he positioned himself to not see Perfect. I mean, Perfect has to literally get into the middle of the ring to be able to get it. But Earl Hebner has positioned himself perfectly so that he doesn't see Perfect at all in the ring when he's pulling Savage off Ric Flair for the pin. It's not often that a ref is in the right position, and usually there's a lot of leeway, but Earl Hebner absolutely nailed it perfectly. And then I think afterwards Savage goes out to chase Perfect, and Earl Hebner's out trying to stop him from getting involved with Perfect because he hasn't seen Perfect get involved in the match. So this to him is Randy Savage bringing Perfect into the match. Really well done by Earl. I was very impressed.
Yeah, really good stuff. Takes a little bit of a bump as well, a little mini ref bump, doesn't he? Sort of.
I don't know if it was meant to. You couldn't tell if he was meant to do that or not.
Which is good. I like that. If you can't tell, that's a good thing, surely.
And then that's when we get the brass knucks that are covered in tape for some reason, because surely that would take away some of the power of the brass knucks. And Flair absolutely cold cocks Randy Savage with the knucks. And another good spot, which it was very different to what normally happens, is Flair didn't hide the brass knucks in his trunks, which is what normally wrestlers would do. He palms them back off to Perfect, and Perfect just slips them in his pocket and walks around the ring, essentially whistling. It's brilliant, brilliantly played, really well done.
The pop when Savage kicks out of this, brass knuck shot for 2 is huge again, and the pace of the match, with the axe handles and Flair doing his tumble over the top and all that sort of stuff. You can see that they're really sort of building towards something now. It's timed. I mean, the match goes, 24, 25, 26 minutes, Magsy? Something like that.
I think it's just a tad over 20 minutes. So,
okay, right. So they've got a decent amount of time.
Doesn't feel it at all.
Oh, no. They've got a decent amount of time, and it has been slow in places, but I think by design. And they were sort of cranking it up a little bit. And the crowd, they're really sucking this crowd in now. They've got them on the edge of their seats. And it just shows how talented these two performers actually are. Perfect waffles Savage with a chair in the ribs. And this is where Liz arrives, isn't it?
She does. And out comes the star of the show, Shane McMahon, making his debut, trying to stop Liz from getting involved in the match.
Ric Flair starts working on the leg, as you would expect. It's a Ric Flair match, so we get the standard, shin breaker and the spot where he puts it over the bottom rope and jumps on it, and so on, setting up for obviously the figure 4, which he eventually snaps on. We get Savage letting his shoulders hit the mat for some 2 counts. Perfect is doing the whole leaning through the ropes and pulling on Flair's hands to give him a bit more leverage. Almost quite can't reach. If Flair was a couple of inches further away, I think they wouldn't reach each other and might look a bit silly.
so they were perfectly placed then.
Oh, there you go. Exactly. Savage then does the whole turning the figure 4 onto his stomach spot
to reverse the pressure.
Yes. Perfect again tries to stop this happening by grabbing Flair to help him turn back. The ref notices this and does the whole kick the arms away moment. And the crowd go wild for this as well, don't they?
I mean, he's the best at that. He's absolutely the best. I mean, all the times he's did it with guys like Triple H. An Earl Hebner punt is a sight to see.
Yeah, indeed. Both guys get back up. Savage is basically on one leg because he's had the figure 4 he's been working on, and he's selling this like his leg is broken. It's really great selling for Savage.
Is one of the best sellers that there has ever been, Randy Savage. Yeah.
He ends up trying to kick Flair, or Flair ends up picking the leg, ready to carry on the attack on this. Flair swings for Savage. It gets blocked. Savage gives him 1 punch to the face, rolls him up with a handful of tights, and wins the world title. He's effectively just won the world title with a punch.
And a roll-up.
Yeah. But a big handful of tights as well.
A big old hand. You saw the Hall of the Moon.
Well, it's not a Ric Flair match if you don't see blood and a bare arse, is it?
It was almost Shawn Michaels levels of arse out.
There we go.
But Flair, Heenan, and Perfect are not happy with this whatsoever, and they beat the shit out of Randy Savage. It's he gets an absolute whooping. Flair then attempts to give Liz grief, and she dry slaps the guy, which is brilliant.
Yeah. There's quite a lengthy time where they keep attacking Savage over and over again, isn't it, before they leave the ring? And then we get some post-match promos, and it's brilliant for me. I mean, Savage's promo is crazy and ranty and shouty, and you don't really 100% get what he's on about at times, but that's Randy Savage for you. Flair's promo is the one that's really interesting for me, though. because they're going to continue this for the next few months. This was the WWF's summer program, effectively. This is going to be their head, because they know they're losing Hogan. They know they're losing. Well, the Warrior is coming back, but even the Warrior coming back, we go to Wembley at SummerSlam 92, Savage and the Warrior. Ric Flair's a massive part of what's going on in that contest. Heading into Survivor Series is the same thing. So they're going to run with Savage and Flair for quite a while. The Liz aspect of the storyline gets dropped very quietly, because they're going through their separation at this point. When their divorce is finalized, she kind of just walks away from the company. A month or two after this, I think, something like that. Yeah. So that aspect of the story is kind of quietly swept away. But Flair's promo is all about, again, we come back to my point earlier on, where do we go next? This is him, Heenan, and Perfect, and I suppose Sean Mooney is holding the microphone for them, their time on television after the match, to put over that this is not done yet. We're going again. You've beaten me once, but you won't do it again. We're going to regroup. The brain trust, so to speak, is going to make a plan, and we're going to come back for you. And I think that is fucking genius, because you've got, again, it comes back to, where do we go next? There it is. And already the fans are like, we want to see that again. Yeah.
And as Flair says in his promo, winning the title means nothing. It's not the doing it, it's the doing it again. And to say that this was essentially booked on the fly with the Hogan fallout and things like that. You normally see WrestleMania as the end of stories, and then the beginning of new one. To carry this storyline on is not something that you would normally see of a WrestleMania. But Ric Flair is so good on his crazy promos that you are interested in this story carrying on. And then he drops the best line that he's dropped in a promo by saying every time he sees Elizabeth, he's going to kiss her on her moist, wet lips. It's just brilliant.
It's probably why
this guy's just lost the world title, and his main ambition is to, every time he sees someone else's wife, he's going to kiss them on the lips. Amazing.
Woo. Before we get to our links for where we'd like to go on the next episode of Chain Wrestling Live, we need to rate what we think of this particular match, Mr. Max. Out of 10, what are you thinking, bud?
I mean, it's a great match. Let's call a spade a spade. These two are two of the best wrestlers to ever enter a ring, and the story was really well told. Ric Flair, he's, as you mentioned, he's controlling of the pace. Then you've got Randy's kind of enthusiasm and exuberance and passion. Technically, two amazing wrestlers. This match is an absolute belter. We get some blood. It's got everything that you need from what should have been the main event of WrestleMania. So I'm going to go 10. I'm giving this a 10.
Whoa.
I really enjoyed it.
Holy crap.
It's a great story. It harkens back to my wrestling childhood, watching matches like this with my gran. It's just classic, just entertaining wrestling. Great storyline, excellent in-ring work. Yeah, I loved it. It's a 10. 10 all day.
Why? That's blown my mind. I thought maybe I was being biased because of the nostalgia factor for me growing up with it by going with an 8. But you going a 10, that's blown my mind. Wow, okay. I mean, an 8's still very high. Yeah, an 8's still very high for me.
Jesus.
I think. But a couple of things. It was a bit more punchy kicky than I remember it being. Not a bad thing because it worked, but it was a little bit more punchy kicky than I remember it being. And I think there was a little, maybe they could have just toned down the outside stuff a touch. Just a touch. But there's a real small, tiny nitpicks on my part. And the fact that we're seeing effectively the middle of a feud here rather than the ending, as you brilliantly described, that sometimes does happen at WrestleManias. I think also kind of you want the big spectacle to be the end sometimes, but they need the program for the summer, obviously. So I think that kind of hindered what they might have done as well. But I still really enjoyed it. It's fantastic storytelling on Flair's part. It's brilliant selling on Savage's part. Two absolute legends in the ring doing brilliant stuff. My only drawback going forward from this was that Flair, obviously, in a few months' time, goes on to regain the championship from Savage. I believe that was just at a house show or a TV taping or something like that.
No, I think it was a house show.
Yeah. And then the next title change as well. I think we go into October, and that's when Bret Hart, is it Saskatoon in Canada?
Saskatoon.
Yeah. That's where Bret Hart beats Flair for his first world title, forcing him to submit to the sharpshooter in Canada there. And that was a house show as well.
Yeah.
I wonder how often in the more modern era then, sort of
back
house show changes.
Yeah.
That can't have happened very often.
No. I bet this is probably the only one.
People in the chat, people listening to the audio version, people give us a shout on
Scottish
Twitter.
Danny.
Scottish Danny, he knows his stuff, doesn't he? The encyclopedia himself. World title changes, and it is the world title I'm looking at. World title changes that happened on house shows back to back, or very close together at least, because I don't think it has happened at all bar in this.
No, none come to mind.
No, really interesting. Again, I suppose it's a really interesting time in the business, isn't it? It's very
transitional.
There we go. Magsy, where do you want to go next week, my friend?
So, as we said at the start of the show, we take a few weeks off, and the absolute wrestling world burns. And we lost some very recently. We've lost some big stars in wrestling, and the whole scene just feels a little bit darker. And one we lost fairly recently was the Iron Sheik. And just an amazing character. But we also lost someone else just this past week who has links with the Iron Sheik. We lost General Adnan.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so in the space of a couple of months, we've lost both Colonel Mustafa and General Adnan. So I think it's very poignant for us to go to kind of talk about their biggest match in terms of classic WWF, and that is the match made in hell from SummerSlam 1991, where they teamed with Sergeant Slaughter against Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior. And the way I'm linking to this match is because the other side of that SummerSlam main event was the match made in heaven, which was the marriage of Randy Savage and Liz. So that's where I'm linking from this match to the match made in hell, SummerSlam 1991. Hogan and the Warrior beat the world of Sergeant Slaughter, General Adnan, and Colonel Mustafa.
There's a lot to dive into that as well, isn't there? With the whole Warrior backstage business and all that going on. Yeah, that could be a real meaty episode. That
it could.
Yeah, and I love a bit of the old, cheesy golden generation or whatever they call it. That era. It's Oh man, that's a great shape, Max. That is a great shape. You could have also linked with it, of course, with Hogan, because he was in the other main event on this show. Looked at,
but I mentioned him enough.
Okay, I have gone that route, but I'm not using Hogan. I'm using his opponent. So
Sid.
I'm using Sid, because I watched the promos and so on, and a few clips of Sid on this particular pay-per-view when I was trying to skip back and forth using the shitty network update that makes it virtually impossible.
I hate it.
It's crap. I absolutely despise it. But it then got me thinking, I like Sid.
I do. Do you know what? I actually really do like Sid.
Yeah. But I don't know why I like Sid, because he's not that good. It's kind of weird. It's kind of,
I think I like Sid because of his face run against Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, I mean, that's some great matches in that as well.
And I like his intensity in his promos. I like the way his top lip stiffens and doesn't move when he's talking.
And he talks like that before shouting again. You know, it's kind of
And he's half the man that you are, and he has half the brains that you do.
Brilliant. So I got me thinking, are there any really good Sid matches out there? I was like, there must be somebody who was carried into a great man. My first thought was Michaels, because Michaels
Scott Steiner.
Sean's Scott Steiner. My first thought was Michaels, because obviously Sean's my guy. But I was like, no, I'm talking a lot about Shawn Michaels at the moment for my other show, the HBK Pod, available every Wednesday on SJP World Media if you want to check it out. But I thought maybe not Shawn then. So I literally just Googled Sid's greatest matches. And one popped out that I looked at and I thought, okay, I'm fairly certain I've seen it, but I don't remember anything about it. But the person who wrote this little mini article was singing its praises. So I was like, okay, well, maybe we'll have a look at that. And it's a similar sort of time-ish, give or take 6 months either side, from his face run against Michaels. That sort of era, that sort of mid-90s kind of time. I would like to go, using Sid as the link, to In Your House 12, It's Time, and see Sid take on Bret the Hitman Hart for the WWF World title. Because, you know, again, Sid's matches against Shawn were very good. And apparently this match against Bret is also quite good. And I can't really remember it. So that's my option for the poll, my friend.
A great pick. I mean, anytime we can strong arm any Bret the Hitman Hart matches onto this show is always a good time, and it's guaranteed to get at least one vote with Dan.
So those are your options for the poll, which will be up later in the week. We go to a handicap match, I suppose. The main event of SummerSlam 1991. Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior taking on the evil Iraqi trio of Sergeant Slaughter.
The Triangle of Terror.
Oh, yeah. General Adnan and, of course, who's the Iron Sheik, wasn't it? The Iron Sheik.
Colonel Mustafa. It wasn't the Iron Sheik. It was Colonel Mustafa.
Colonel Mustafa, sorry, of course. Or we can go a couple of years later and check out Big Lump Sid taking on Bret the Hitman Hart at In Your House 12. It's time. As I said, the poll will be out later in the week. Make sure you're voting, and hugely important to anything we do here on SJP World Media. Make sure you're sharing it, telling your friends. We want as much interaction and eyes on what we do as we can possibly get. And that goes for all the shows and chain wrestling as well, of course. Magsy, before we go, shall we have a little scan through the chat and see what people have been saying?
We'll start with Sharon saying moist.
Sharon loves how so many other people dislike that word.
What, moist? Wow.
Yeah. Lots of people
it's a cool word.
Yeah, I like. Yeah, it don't bother me. But there's so many people that
It doesn't bother me. You're just so Gloucester. It don't bother me. No, it doesn't, or it don't. You don't bother me.
Do you know? I genuinely get so cross with my kids when they don't say the T in things like water and kettle. It pisses me off so much.
You said done.
Yeah, I know.
Dan Griffin says he just realised Big Bob is in a flash.
Yes.
Yeah, before the recording started, a quizmate said, "Can you see Big Bob's shirt? Can you see what shirt he's in?" Yeah, that's a flare shirt.
Got to keep your eye on that because he will be changing his top to suit where possible.
Sharon says, "Don't knock and notebook and pen. I don't go. Yeah, but you're an author. You'll get the inspiration." Sa is literally sat in front of a computer where he could have his notes literally on the screen, but instead he writes them down like a Neanderthal.
For every other show, by the way, I do use my computer. It's just that when we're live with this one, if like for example the intro that I use, I've got like bullet points for that. I open a Word document for that, but it covers the chat. Because if I make it any smaller so I could see the chat, I can't read my own notes because my eyes are bad. So
you need a second screen.
I've got one just there, just above me. I just haven't plugged it in.
Brilliant. You've had 3 weeks.
Yeah, also it's above here. So when I'm reading stuff, I'll be like that. You know?
Amazing. King Pigs Banner says that both of these wrestlers were legend in the ring. Dan says, bang, back with a bang, a 10 from Max. Yeah, it was a great match.
Yeah,
It really is a great match. Dan says, Sid is fun because he's a bit shit.
Yeah.
Oh, Sid. I will always give props to somebody who would drop the World Wrestling Federation title to go and play softball. That's commitment. That's absolute commitment. Good on him.
There's stories about Sid not knowing. I think it's one of those shoot interviews that you see on YouTube and that Sid wasn't aware this was WrestleMania when he wrestled the match. He just thought it was just a TV match.
It would not shock me. I mean, there's the famous interview or promo he does with Jim Ross where he tries to start again, and Jim Ross is like, "Sorry, we're live, pal." It's just amazing. King Pigs Banner says Sid's brilliant. Yep, and Dan Griffin says Sid gets my vote. Yeah, bad default because he's in a match with Bret Hart.
There we go.
But yeah, that's the chat caught up with.
Fantastic stuff. Magsy, before we go then, do you want to let everyone know whereabouts they can find you online, my friend?
Yep. Before I drop my one and only social that I ever pay the slightest bit of attention to, I want to give thanks to you guys in the CWF. In this day and age, with the amount of content that is coming at you from all angles, to go a few weeks with no content can be the death knell for a lot of creators. But you guys have stuck by us, and we massively appreciate it. We haven't got the biggest community in the wrestling sphere, but by God, we love each and every one of you. You are so
100%.
Amazing, and we massively appreciate you sticking with us, and we will endeavor to entertain you each and every Monday at 8:30 now instead of 9 o'clock. But in terms of socials, follow me on TikTok because that's the only place you'll properly find me, where you can see the chicken news before it gets aired on Mondays, and that's at Podfarmer Mags. Or if you do want to follow me on Twitter, and I will eventually see a tweet or two per month, that's at Podfarmer Mags. But yeah, other than that, follow me at my house. Follow me around the streets.
Fair enough. I just want to second what you said, Magsy, about the CWF and so on. It is fantastic. I always worry about stuff. I'm a natural worrier. I naturally doubt myself. I doubt lots of things, and I shouldn't. I should never do it with this show. And I always say to you, "Oh, what about this? What about that? I'm worried about this. What if when we went to a Sunday? What if nobody joins us?" And you always tell me, "Don't worry about it," and you're always right. And I shouldn't doubt you, but I still do. It's silly of me, but it's quite humbling, to be fair.
They will like what we tell them to like.
There we go. Anything I'm involved in, of course, you can find by the network that carries this show. It's at SJP World Media on Facebook and Twitter, and all your podcast players, platforms, and providers. And as I mentioned earlier on, with regards to the poll for Chain Wrestling, it is hugely important, if you can, please, that everyone is subscribing to the YouTube channel. Everyone is sharing the crap out of anything we do on Twitter, on Facebook, any access you have to it. Tell your friends. I mean, even tell people you don't like. We'll tolerate them for a couple of weeks. Just get it out there. We want more and more people to get eyes, subscribers, follows, likes, etc. on what we're doing. Because I think it's worth it. And I think people joining in is great fun. And I love the people we've got. If we expand a bit, that's awesome as well. So there we go. You can also follow this show, of course, and get involved in our non-wrestling topic and our polls and all that good stuff on Facebook and Twitter, and that's at _wrestling. That's kind of it, I suppose, Magsy. We got King's Pigs Badders saying sorry, Sharon, in the chat one last time.
And Sharon not taking it because she's give the broken heart emoji.
I'm sure they'll make up in the end. There we go. I'm off now, Magsy, to go and get my head down at an half decent time for a change on a Monday, because I've got early starts now and I'm knackered.
And I'm off to go and kiss Liz on her moist, wet lips. Goodbye, folks.